Jesse, thank you so much for coming on the Winners Paradigm podcast, brother. It's an honor getting to know you, and it was put on to you by good people. Joel
Yes,
Evans. I
sir.
was like, man, love Joel, and anybody connects me with, I know he's an incredible human being. So even that 10-minute phone call we had on Friday, I was like, man, I already love this dude. I'm gonna go to Phoenix and I'm gonna go see this guy. So before we jump into it today and get ahead of ourselves, would you mind giving us a brief intro, who you are, what you're passionate about today, brother?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, shout out Joel. He connected us. And likewise, man, on that call, just the energy, the vibration, I just loved it. I was like, we're going to hit it off. And so I'm excited to be here and honored as well. As far as me, man, Jesse Ray, where do I start? I went from Cabana Boy to doing corporate sales to now a real estate investor and helping other people get into real estate, and created something called Growth House and then Rent Smart Rentals, where essentially we help create entrepreneur houses and also create houses for business professionals.
That is awesome there, brother. And let's touch on the early portion, of
Yeah.
you being in sales, developing the skills that allowed you to start your own mastermind and then start the
Mhm.
business behind it. How important was it for you to take those L's early on and to realize that, man, I got to up this sales game and continually get better and better as time goes?
Yeah, there's so much I learned in sales. And I tell everyone who's like in college or even high school, go do door to door, go get that rejection. Cause that's gonna help you so much in life, just in general, whether it's relationships, trying to date someone, or now in business. So yeah, I guess early on, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad and was like, okay, my eyes are open now. I don't have to, retire at 65. There's another plan. I didn't know what that plan was, but I saw what he did. He got a job at Xerox. So I copied him. I'm like, all right, Robert Kiyosaki did this. I'll do the same thing. So I got a family friend, hooked me up with a job. And no lie, that first 3 months, I almost quit 6 times, bro. Like it was terrible. You would basically say, go out there, collect like, I think it was 25 business cards and basically get rejected 25 times straight to your face. I went door to door in the business sense where I would come into law offices, CPA firms. Hey, I'm Jesse. I work for this company and just curious when your lease is up. I didn't really know how to even have a dialogue. That was like the extent of it. And it was just day after day after day, no sales, no interest, no meeting set. So yeah, man, it was humble beginnings.
Hell yeah, brother. And that's exactly why I wanted to talk about that, because that was something we chopped it up on Friday. And
Yeah.
I said I resonated with that because I did home improvement sales and it was driving all over Southern California, going into people's houses. And it was that was a shock to me coming out of the Marine Corps and then being real green, not really knowing how to sell and having a different mindset, where I'm like, I don't get why these people aren't getting it, like this is a good product,
Hmm.
whatever it is. And it was funny because it's like every sell was the same, and I started realizing that for
Hmm.
myself in 1 month, 7 G's, 10 G's, zero, zero,
Hmm.
zero. And at that time I was
Yep.
in college at the same time. So working 12, 18-hour days, driving all over, having to be married, we were going through it, tough times throughout that. And I was like, man, I got to get this sales thing under wrap. So for me,
Hmm.
I went to inside sales at a mortgage brokerage and found out that I was actually a lot better on the phone in figuring out, that, hey, if I have a structure, just picking this phone up and talking to them and whispering every so often, doing the Jordan Belfort, that I was able to have a little bit of success there. But just realized that that wasn't for me, because went on, helped veterans after that in another inside sales position. And it was cool, loved it, but it just didn't align with me. So for you, brother,
Right.
you're at the corporate sales position, you're like, hey, this is a good gig. And then you realize that, hey, my calling is something greater. What was it like
Hmm.
that time frame when you started working on those belief systems? And then you said, hey, man, I'm going all out and starting my mastermind and teaching people about real estate.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of self-development, personal development before I even got to like, doing my exit plan to get out of corporate America. I mean, it really I think the mindset shift for me was going from selling to serving. And that's where I realized, like, okay, these people, I'm like selfish because a lot of people are scared of sales. And like sales to me is just serving people. So I think people are scared to like go out there and quote unquote be a salesperson. But for me, it was I'm not being selfish if I'm not getting out there and if I have a product or service I believe in to go and like, talk to these people and say, hey, this I know this can help you solve this problem. And so I think that was a big mindset shift. And during that time when I almost quit 6 times in the first 3 months, I started reading again. I'm like, okay, well, if I want to be a master at this and become good, I need to actually, put my money where my mouth is and start doing coaching and reading more books. So that was kind of like that personal development growth during that period.
Brother, I love that so much. And that was something for me as well. I got Grant Cardone's, so I was learning a little
Hmm.
bit from him. I was reading his books about sales, and then I actually bought Brad Lee's course, and that helped me
Yeah.
out tremendously. And then Jordan Belfort's book. And then from there, I was like, man, now I'm on Andy Elliott's sales page, so I'm working on that. And
Nice.
it was awesome, going throughout that whole process and figuring out for me, hey, what is it for me? Well, I'm really good at being vulnerable with people and breaking it down on that level. So when I moved
Hmm.
into the, helping veterans, it was just something where I'm like, man, I go through this every single day too. And it was just, it was awesome because I love the way that you said that, from sales to serving. And that was something I
Hmm.
learned well while I was doing that, because that was a tough gig. The reason why is because you have 60, 70-year-olds who've been screwed over for 40 years, and they're different
Hmm.
minds. Fuck this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, man, like I totally understand what you're going through. I had injuries. That's why I had to get out the military, and like explaining that. And then it was funny because that actually led me to this week, to where I launched a
Hmm.
mastermind about podcasting and just really helping business owners, entrepreneurs, transform their passion, because we all have that. We have our businesses and we talk about these things and we go on social media all the time, but we need to be able to put that in a podcast and start helping people. So I had this mastermind and I'm hitting people up. And it was funny because one guy was like, $47 is too much. And I was like, yeah, man, $47 is too much. I don't think this group's for you. And he was like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Be out of your own group. And I was just like, nah, man, like this is all groups of entrepreneurs who are in here, making 6, 7 figures, and they're building their brands and they're talking about it. And it's not that we're just coming here to talk about podcasts. We're coming here to talk about your podcast, to get you to
Hmm.
network, to be able to work on self-development. Because part of that course that I did, that I created, the ninth step, is talking about the self-development and talking about, hey, you can be able to talk about your business, talk about your brand, but you're going to hit a point to where you're like, man, I need to pivot and talk about something new. Or, hey, how do I
Hmm.
implement new strategies if, let's say, I'm promoting a product and then in the future I have a new product out. So it was taking all that sales knowledge that I had and then working with one of the top podcasting guys to be able to do my own group. And it was crazy starting the mastermind because it was getting the people in there. And I was like, man, I think we have something special here, because now it goes from me thinking that I'm just selling to serving people. And that's where I put out a post the other day. And I'm like, it's a disservice to the fucking world if I'm not being the best I can be and sharing that,
Mm.
being
That's
vulnerable and
good.
opening up. So that's the one thing I love about you as well with your content, man, is like you're always being vulnerable and opening up with people, letting them know who the real Jesse Ray is. So I really appreciate you
Mm.
for that, because that was something I was seeing. I was like, man, that's incredible.
Dude, that wasn't always the case, man. Like on Instagram, everyone's showing their highlight reel. So I'm like, okay, I guess I just gotta, show this highlight reel. And there's like, for every win, there's 30 losses or learning lessons that I had to go through to accomplish something. I mean, even my first house, people are like, oh man, you just bought that first house, quickly, and then you bought the second house, 7 months later. Yeah, but I spent 5 years in analysis paralysis, just like scared to even take action. And it wasn't until I actually put, pen to paper that it actually became like real to me. There's a quote like clarity turns dreams to reality. And for me, that clarity was actually putting the pen to pad, kind of like Kobe Bryant said, you signed a contract with yourself. And then that's when it became real for me. And that's when everything, started actually, momentum started going.
I love that so much. And that's one thing I like talking about is clarity. So for
Hmm.
you, what was something that allowed you to tap into that mental clarity and understand that, hey, man, we have something here, but now it's not about just building it. It's about having that vision and living that every single day.
Yeah, there was an exercise. One of my first coaches, shout out man overseas, aka Brad. He had me do this exercise called the 4S exercise. And this is something I try to like repeat and do like a self audit. And the reason why this gave me clarity is because it said, all right, take like the most important things in your life, spiritual, your physical health, your finances, and then your business. And then also at the same time, it's like it's hard to explain this to some words, but you also like you take like success, or you start with survival and then stability and then success and then significance, and you put on like this little check mark where you're at in each of those aspects of your life. And for me, that gave me clarity saying, oh, I'm off on a lot of this. Maybe I'm on this one spot. And so it's kind of getting more aligned with myself and where the direction I wanted to go. That exercise really helped me. And that was kind of the first time where I realized it's just not all about one thing. There's more aspects of life that are so important because I was just head down, focused on business, focused on my finances. So that gave me more clarity. And that also led me to realize, oh, what is my purpose? What is my passion? And for me, that purpose meant passion through Growth House, which is essentially, building these entrepreneur houses, creating this mastermind. So it's been an amazing experience the last couple of years.
That is awesome, and that'll be the next segment that we talk about is Growth House. But I wanted to build up to it because it's been awesome.
Yeah.
That you've explained it, and I love that about the 4 S's. That was something similar that I did. Is for me, I'll do the 5 W's, and then from there really branch off on it. But for me, it was going through it time and time again, and like I said, working with Babcock and really going through all this and wasn't really making any money. And I was like, man, I don't know if this aligns to me. Maybe it's just me being brand new out the gate and I need to figure out my own voice and figure out my own way. So when that ended and I ended up my own gig, it was funny because I was so focused on trying to get people to see the value than actually just giving value. And that's where I framed back to where like I started a Facebook group a week ago. And I was just like, hey, in this Facebook group, we're going to be talking about X, Y, and Z. And I'm going on lives every day. And I was like, well, I'm adding this extra value. And that's why I'm closing people is because they're already seeing what it is before they even join the group. And even if they do join the group, that's where it's going to be transformational. So for me, it was understanding that. But two, like I had to fail and really burn in order for myself to see like, hey, man, there's some stepping up we have to do and certain organizational things that we needed to put into place. So that you said that, brother. And for Growth House, I know you guys were doing some in-person masterminds that were incredible. And then now online as well. What's been the best part about that where you're able to build that community and start sharing all that knowledge, brother?
Man, environment and association has played such a big role in my life and so many other people's lives that I realized that those are like two of the main factors on, determining success. Like you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with, right? And so for me, it was realizing that you can expedite your growth if you're also living with these people. And so for me, I bought my first house, filling them up with, entrepreneurs, people who had that extra ambition. And all of a sudden I started getting this confidence like, okay, if they can do it, I can do this too. And also just encouraging one another. So community, I didn't have it as much back home in Portland. Love Portland, but it was time to make a change. And that change, actually, I think I told you, but it was a tweet. And so the tweet said, life hack, move out of your hometown in your 20s. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. Let's do it. And so I was like late 20s. I'm like, I got to do this soon. And so that's what kind of, propelled me to go to Phoenix and have that happen and start that new community.
That's incredible, brother. And that's one thing people don't get, you know what I mean? And it's funny because you don't think about your environment. You don't think about the people you have around you until you're gone. And for me, it was like leaving to the military, was deploying and then coming back home and everybody's doing the same thing. And for me, I was on a completely different scale, pushing myself to go to college, even though that it resonate with me. But I was like, hey, I'm going to get this degree. They're paying for me, paying for it as well. So I'm like, man, I'm going to stack this money up and really thinking about my vision about what I wanted in life. And then the more I was in sales, I was like, you know what, sales is cool. I love it, but I have to be doing something that is going to bring more back to me and that I'm going to be able to take care of my family because we started going through a lot. So for me, it was really the same thing as well. It was like looking at everybody I had around me, and especially after that partnership, that's where I did it again, was like, yeah, I have a lot of good people around me, but I really need to get in a different room and invest into other masterminds, into coaching and get better because there's still things that I haven't figured out. And that's the reason why, I hired a fitness trainer and I started working with my boy, Sean, like train, and got into his business coaching. And I'm like doing all these things that traditionally I would say no to. And I would be like, man, I can't do this. It's too much money versus like, how could I make this money? How could I be abundant? How could I serve people and just be a better individual human being all the way around? So I love the way that you said that, brother, because that's something that people don't think about. And then when shit hits the fan and then they do it, they're like, well, maybe this isn't so bad after all, because I had to actualize a lot more.
I love that. And it's so right, like about masterminds. And for me, the biggest thing has been my own belief. So I've had a limiting belief a lot of my life, right? But then once you get into these circles, especially intimate circles, and you hear these people talking about, well, like for me, example, I was thinking like, man, once I make 6 figures on my side, my side hustle or my business, that's gonna be amazing. And I get in a room with these guys and they're like, yeah, so we just got I think you like the other day we were talking at lunch. He's like, yeah, I got a Falcon 9,000. I'm like, what the heck? Well, what is that? He's like, oh, it's a private jet. I'm like, what? We're thinking about two different like things right now. And so just being in that circle, seeing that they're no different than you. They've probably been at it longer and they have the confidence. And so for me, getting like that's obviously a more extreme example, but even starting off when I was working in corporate America, I'm like, there's no way, I don't want to be CEO. I don't want to start my own business. That sounds way too hard. And then just connecting with these people and seeing that it's possible, I think it's been the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, man, and I love that, and that's something that we need to think about, and definitely, it just all adds up on everything that you're saying, uh, in correlation to where it all is linked to each other. You know what I mean? The belief systems, how we operate, how we move, how fast, how slow we are about things. And I love
Mm-hmm.
that, man, because that's something for me. Now I just take immediate action. I'm like, fuck it, if I fail, I fail. But at least I
Yeah.
did it. And then I'm just sitting there and be like, well, this didn't work, on to the next thing. And it really
Mm-hmm.
goes into showing, the pillars, the foundational principles, excuse me, that you have as a human being to where
Mm.
you're there every single day, brother. So for you, what are some things that you have in your every single day life that allowed you to stay geared in, allowed you to have that proper mindset so you can continue to be consistent? Because I know a lot of us lack
Mm-hmm.
that foundation.
Yeah, consistency even the past 2 years, it's not always there. But when I am consistent, I know exactly what I need to do. And like people have different beliefs about morning routines. I see a lot of benefit because for me, it's stacking those wins early. It's not like it's a 4 hour process. So literally get up, go hit the gym, go do sauna, steam room, and then, take a cold plunge. So for me, just stacking those wins, knowing that I've accomplished something early in the day just sets the tone for the rest of the day. Like people say, Jesse, you have a lot of energy. I'm like, yeah, because I just, I'm going. I hit the gym. I feel good. I got this adrenaline going through me. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that has led to consistency. When I am really consistent, has been that morning routine, knocking out those small wins early on.
I love that. And that was something for me that I challenged myself the other day because I was listening to Hormozy and he was talking about,
Mm-hmm.
oh, 3-4 hours a morning and you could just be selling that whole time and that you
Yeah.
could just contribute that more to your business. And I'm like, you know what? I think it's an ebb and flow. Like sometimes that works
Mm-hmm.
for you. But I'm saying for me, like the more that I'm geared in, and I know for a fact, when I work out in the morning, whether I'm throwing up because my joints hurt and I'm feeling terrible, kind of like today,
Mm-hmm.
got in the gym, got a workout in. Like by the time it was 8 o'clock, I had a bunch of wins already. I started closing,
Mm-hmm.
started hitting clients up. Hey man, how you doing? And really was just changing the way that I was thinking because I already put that time in on myself. Like it was a completely different outcome than the days where I'm lagging behind. I'm a little slower because I decided to sleep in. I'm
Yeah.
not geared. I'm not ready for it. And then I realized, like, oh man, this all stemmed back to me and my belief system of,
Mm-hmm.
hey, if my morning routine isn't completed, then I'm a failure. So it was like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
let's change this. So that's where I started. I just bought a cold plunge, but I take
Let's go.
cold showers all the time. So I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
like if I wake up late or I'm not feeling well, let's do cold shower first. I got a
Mm-hmm.
heated blanket. So I put the heated blanket on and I'm doing emails or on Facebook hitting people up. And I'm like, that's as simple as I can make it for myself sometimes because
Mm-hmm.
with that, and that's why I say like I have the A that I operate 5 to 7 days a week, and then the 2 days
Mm-hmm.
that I don't, have the B where I'm like I know exactly what to do to get myself on track, so I can be able to come into this podcast and I can be able to start spinning knowledge, and everybody's like, oh shit, you're in the right mind frame. Versus when I'm
Mm-hmm.
not there, and then I'm kind of just dragging, trying to figure it out along the way, and then maybe even listening to other people who are like, well, morning routines don't matter, and I'm like, yeah, to you, but if I'm not doing my own morning routine and I'm not consistent,
Mm-hmm.
then I really can't speak on it because then I can't tell you if it's working or not.
Right. Another thing you just kind of reminded me, consistency has been writing out my day the night before. That's been huge for me. Like I stopped doing that for a while. And then the next day I'm like, all right, what am I doing? Yeah, I got a calendar, but is there like 3 things I probably need to do this day? And so now, night before, here's my 3 action steps I need to do and need to finish before the next day is over. That's been the game changer for me as well.
Oh, and then thank you for saying that. That was actually something I was going to talk about was I have OCD. And one of the things I have OCD about is that where every single day, like I don't care what it is, I have to have my
Mhm.
clothes laid out first. Like if my
Yeah.
clothes are laid out, I freak the fuck out in the morning. In the morning, I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't know what to wear, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, t-shirts every day. So it's not like I'm doing anything new, So I just implemented that. And I'm like, all right, black t-shirt,
Mhm.
jeans, or shorts every day. Easy money. And then on to the next thing. And for me, I do the same thing. Every night I think about the day and I'm like, all right, this is what
Mhm.
happened, whatever, whatever. How am I going to show up differently tomorrow? This new mastermind that I started, I have a couple different guys in there. I got a shaman in there who talks about, manifestation and all the practices and
Mhm.
rituals that you can do for that. I have a guy that teaches, he's a men's coach that helps good guys turn into better men so they're not getting walked all over. And then I have a couple
Mhm.
other guys who have coaching programs. So I'm like, each one is going to be a little different. And then one that's a football analyst. So he needed help with his
Nice.
podcast, getting it out there and going on. And I'm like, well, with him, it's going to be a different strategy because he's going to need to collaborate with other influencers, other analysts. He does all this fucking work into his programming and watching these games. And it's a different ball game that he's working on than other people. So I have to come at that
Mhm.
differently. And I'd say like that's been the best thing for me lately was thinking about it the night before and then being like, all right, two, how can I connect this guy with somebody who's going to be able to help him on that level? Or what's the easiest
Mhm.
way for me to tap into that network so I can be like, hey, man, I have a client and he's looking to connect with somebody like you. And for me, it was like, I have to the night before say that I'm going to do it. Cause if not, then the next day something pops up or then a client needs to talk something through. And it's like, yeah, I can do that. And then all of a sudden I look and it's 4 hours later and then I'm on a whole other
Mhm.
thinking about something else, kicking my feet up. And I'm like, oh, I totally forgot what I was supposed to do.
So easy to stay busy. That's what I've learned. Like the beauty of not having a boss and doing your own business is that you don't have a boss. But then the hard thing is that you have no person to really hold you accountable or to tell you exactly what to do. So it definitely is kind of a catch 22 on that. But you're so right. I think you might be on mute.
All right, I'm
There
not
you
that
go.
bright there. I had myself muted and I'm like, why isn't this shit working? Why I'm trying to talk and it's not working. Yeah, probably because I muted myself on accident and was going through that. So my bad there. But man, I loved it so much. And you know what? You're 100% right, brother. So when it comes down to it, I ask everybody the same question that comes on the show. What would you say to the
Mhm.
previous version of yourself? We don't know where to align ourselves to our definition of success. We're just trying to get started and move that needle forward.
Can you repeat the first part? Can you repeat that first part?
Yeah. So, what would you say to the previous version of ourself? We're looking to get started, but we don't know where to start. We're just trying to align ourselves to our definition of success.
I mean, for me, it's probably to stick into the motto that we put for Growth House, which is you become who you surround yourself with, and being so intentional and being very honestly intentional with who you're hanging out with, who you're surrounding yourself with. Because for me, when it was people that just were partying all the time, guess what? I was partying, getting lit. And then when it was people that actually were taking life serious and want to, grow their businesses, then I was kind of on that same focus and same track. So just be really intentional about who you surround yourself with. And I think that's probably the number one thing, especially
Let's
early on.
let's touch on that real quick because you did mention the
Yeah,
partying versus not. So for you,
yeah,
did you find a balance for that, or was it for you the typical subtraction, eliminating it, and then realizing that hey, I didn't really want to do those things anyway. I wanted to be able to
yeah.
lean into becoming the best man that I could be, and that means doing something different.
I think it shows you a lot when if you're out and you're not drinking. For me, I wasn't having fun. So I'm like, wait, so I have to drink in order to have fun? Something's not right. So for me, that's just not my vibe, you know? I'll go have a good time and not drink. Like now I love doing that. But back then it was more so, yeah, it was just you needed that liquor to actually have fun. And that's when I was like, you know what? I'm gonna slowly back off. I didn't like cut anyone off. Like some people are like, just totally cut people off. I just stopped going out. And then people slowly were like, oh, probably need to stop hitting up Jesse because he's probably going to say no. He's working on his business or studying or doing something. So that's what happened with my circumstances.
Yeah, brother, I love that. And I just hit a year not drinking. And that was one of the things for me too, where that was
Nice.
my identity. I was that dude who walks
Mhm.
in, "What's up, motherfuckers? You ready to party?" And doing
Yep.
balls to the walls all the time. And then when I
Yeah.
stopped drinking, it was being in those situations and being like, well, there's really no fit for me. Plus, two, I would be like, oh, when I'm drunk, I get the mouthpiece. But I developed myself
Yeah, the alcohol
so much
confidence.
where I have the confidence now to have the mouthpiece to talk to anybody, anytime, any day. So I don't need to
Mhm.
lean on that liquor. And it was funny, when that actualization happened, and I was like, man, I'm not drinking anymore. I feel better. I feel healthier. I have a better soundproof mind. And then the
Yeah.
second part, waking up the next morning, being like, what feels good? Not being hungover.
Man, I swear it's a superpower. Once you get to that point to have that liquid courage when you actually don't have any liquor in you, oh, that felt amazing. I was like, oh, I can do this on my own.
Man, I learned that, in person, which was crazy.
Mhm,
Was I went out to an event, and before the event, I was thinking, and I was like, man, I really need to get this business going. And I'm thinking outside of my head, and I was just like,
mhm.
I don't know if I can talk to, there's gonna be 2,000 people there and blah, blah, blah. And I was like,
Yeah,
all right, well, let's just make the most out of whoever we talk to. Cause obviously I'm not gonna talk to every 2,000 person. So I
yeah.
went to an event and I just literally started talking. One guy was like, what do you do? And I was like, I help business owners like yourself start podcasts and really hone into what's they're passionate about. And the teachings, whether if it's about your business, about life, I'm that guy that helps you take that and start transitioning it. So for me, it was starting a podcast on recalibrating your mindset, talking about it doesn't
Mhm,
matter the way you grew up. You are a man, you have the opportunity to change and become the person you dream of. And that means,
mhm.
doing the hard work. And it was crazy because I attracted two other clients that just walked up right after and, oh, yeah, I would love to talk about a podcast. You know what? I've been in business for 20 years. No one ever talked to me about starting a podcast. And I was
Mhm,
just like, man, that's how simple and easy it can be when I'm just talking about what I do and what I love versus before I'm
yeah,
all in my head and I'm like, man, I don't know how to say it or whatever it is. And I was just like,
mhm,
bro, all I got to do is just show up and put a smile on my face and just be like, hey, man, this is how we can add service to each other. So it was crazy, and I love that you mentioned that point because that was something for me. The liquid courage was something that I thought I would never be able to give up. And then once I
yeah,
did it, I was like, man, my life has changed and I'm eternally grateful for it. And that is the one thing
mhm.
that I'm eliminating and never going back to.
I love it, man. Congrats on that year too.
I appreciate you, brother. And last thing here, man, where can people find you if they want to keep up with you? They want to hear more of your story.
Yeah, so Instagram, I'm probably the most active. So it's the Jesse Ray. And then on LinkedIn, also active as well, Jesse Ray. And then Growth House. Instagram probably is the best, and it's underscore the Growth House.
Perfect, brother. We'll have that in the show notes so everybody can hit you up. You've been an amazing guest, my friend. So I know in the future we're going to do something in person when I go out there to see you.
100%.
But I just want to say thank you again, my man. It was amazing.
Man, brother, I appreciate you. I'm excited to connect in person.
Yes, sir.